Buenas, corillo de Curiosidad Científica. Bienvenido a otro episodio más de Curiosidad. Con ustedes les habla su host Agustín Valenzuela, trayéndole las maravillas del universo. Y el día de hoy tengo una persona maravillosa del universo. El día de hoy voy a hablar con una científica, PhD en biología, la doctora Elizabeth Congdon. Pero en esta ocasión ella habla español, inglés, así que decidimos mejor hablar inglés por aquellos términos que son más fáciles de expresar, ¿verdad? En inglés que en español, pero probablemente una que otra vez vamos a hablar de eso. Así que, corillo, bienvenido a todos a este episodio. And welcome, Dr. Elizabeth Congdon. How are you?
Gracias, muy bien. Sí, mi español es más o menos como un gringa. Soy una gringa, pero estoy practicando siempre, entonces, pero la verdad es, hablo más mono y animal que español. Por ejemplo, los monos araguatos,
Mhm.
como, ¿sí? Like that.
Ajá.
Okay, I got
Let me look
that.
my dictionary and see if I can.
Ya. Pero entonces estoy muy feliz para hablar sobre cuando un joven le gustan animales y no casi no saben en cualquier manera para hacer un trabajo, una carrera con animales y hay mucho más de solamente veterinario.
Yeah, okay.
Siempre cuando un joven le gustan animales, seguro
Veterinario.
veterinario, sí, pero hay mucho más oportunidades y em, para veterinarios es muy difícil para el corazón, ¿verdad?
Mhm.
Porque es muy difícil porque siempre están trabajando con animales
Enfermos.
enfermedad. Em, es muy importante para una persona em, to know que saben sus limitaciones
Mhm.
y talents,
Yeah.
right? Y para mí, igual, cuando estaba una niña, me gustan los animales, siempre tenía una, alguna rana,
Ajá.
un culebra, o un perro, gato, algo, cualquier cosa. Um, pero después mi carrera, my undergraduate, mi primera universidad, trabajé con un parque zoológico en Cleveland, Ohio, en el norte.
Mhm.
Y con esos, mi primera oportunidad para trabajar con comportamiento de los animales
Okay.
y con estudios, with research specifically. Y mi jefe en esos fue increíble. I had the chance to work with the data collection, the experimental design, the analysis, to present results, and this was all with flamingos.
Okay.
And nunca en mi vida me gustan aves.
Ajá.
En primer cosa es aves. No es muy divertido que las aves. Pero después, flamingos are fascinating.
Really?
Sí, la verdad. And to experience just watching animals. I mean, I watched flamingos for hours and got to know them and got to see the details of their behavior and to think about why they do things and
Mhm.
how they do things and how they interact with the world was just so much fun. And then through that job, I had the opportunity to go to Venezuela for a
Mhm.
course. 3 semanas en Estado Barinas, en el bosque tropical seco.
Ajá.
Mi primera vez para ver monos y now I am mixing up English and Spanish.
You can say it in English. Don't worry, you're good.
So macaws and monkeys and tracks from tapir and danta. And I mean, just it was amazing, and learned more and more about endangered species and conservation,
Mm-hmm.
and how animal behavior and conservation can work together. So we tend to think about conservation in terms of saving land, protecting land,
Uh-huh.
and stopping hunting. And those are huge, major aspects of conservation. But if you think from the animal's perspective, the most direct and the first way that an animal will respond to some change in the environment is by changing their behavior, right? Eat something different, move to a new area, have fewer babies, have more babies, learn to avoid humans if they're being hunted, change from being active during the day to being more active at night. These are all behavior responses. So by studying behavior, we can see the first effects of changes to the habitat.
Oh,
we
wow.
can see when things are starting to go wrong. And we can also plan our conservation activities in terms of how the animals might react. Right? If that makes sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I was thinking, literally, you're saying that, and I was talking with a paleobiologist, my friend Jorge Velez. He's one of the directors of the Museum of History in California, and he discovered, some paleo, bones of not the manatee, the dudongos. He found some dudongos skulls in another part of like around Chile for, I don't know, maybe 3 million years ago, and the relationship that the first ones they found, they were in the other side of Panama, and it was like, oh, so somehow they want to move down through the other side, and that probably happened 3 million years before, because right now there is no way to cross through Panama anymore because of the chain of destruction. So I'm thinking about what you're saying is like, oh yeah, sure, from the Caribbean, pretty much, they just moved to the other side, to the Pacific, that is a little colder to the area, in Chile. So I'm clicking all those.
Yeah, and that can let us know that, okay, what's going to happen if the water temperature increases with climate change? Well, they could move to another area. What direction might they? We can look at those past movements to predict what might happen in the future.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's it. So I just became fascinated with all of that, and I really, through my life, I followed opportunities, and I feel incredibly blessed to be able to say that they led me in the right direction. So instead of going to school for veterinary medicine, I did a master's degree. So I spent about 6 months in the forest in Venezuela, following the primates. There were 3 species of primates in this reserve. It was a forestry reserve, Reserva Forestal de Capibara. And it was managed through Universidad de los Andes in Mérida, Venezuela. And they had capuchinos, spider monkeys, mono araña, and howler monkeys, araguato. Monoaraguatos.
Those are the smaller ones, right? The
Araguatos?
araguatos, or
No,
not?
they're the bigger. They're the howler monkeys. So they're among the larger of the New World
Okay.
primates. The capuchins are the little ones.
Oh, yeah.
And the really little ones are like the squirrel monkeys or the owl monkeys, or the little ones. But what I looked at was how the three species were using the forest in different ways, because there was a lot of pressure to log this forest. And so what I was able to show is that the spider monkeys, they eat primarily fruit. So they needed older primary. Yeah, there they
Yeah.
are.
They're pretty.
Yes.
Look at those faces.
Yeah. The red howler monkeys, Aloata suniculus.
Look at those. They're pretty big, actually. Look at this one in the branch.
Yes, they are pretty big, and you can see some of them when they're howling and doing they can scare the heck out of you when you don't
For
know
sure.
all of a sudden they start howling.
How close have you been to one of those? I'm sorry that I interrupt you.
Oh no, it's fine. So actually one was in a tree and I didn't see it, and I was right underneath it and it started howling, and oh yeah, I
Scary.
about jumped out of my skin. But they are the howler monkeys just howl at you.
Mhm.
The spider monkeys will throw things at you and try to pee on you. They are kind of the as we would say, hoodlums. They're the naughty teenagers of the forest. And then the capuchins usually just run, just get out of there. But so it's interesting how different they are in their behavior. And one thing is that the spider monkeys prefer to eat fruit.
Mhm.
And so they like older forest that has healthy fruiting trees, tends to be tall and fairly dense forest. So once logging starts, the spider monkeys will be the first to disappear.
Mm.
Now, the capuchins, they are omnivorous. They will eat fruit, they'll eat insects, they'll eat some leaves, a little bit of everything. So because they are more general in their diet, when they are the last to disappear, if the forest and if you cut down a forest for logging but allow it to regrow,
Mhm.
the capuchins will be the first to return.
Mm.
And then the howler monkeys are kind of in between. Howler monkeys eat a lot of leaves. They eat more leaves than any other of the monkeys in the New World. That means two things. One, they tend to sit and digest a lot, right? Plants are harder to digest.
Yeah, it takes
They
longer.
tend to sleep a lot. That also makes them easier targets.
For prey. Yeah.
And well, they taste good.
Oh, have you tried it?
Yeah. So it's interesting and sad, but depending on what area you're in and what species of plants the monkeys are eating, they have different flavor.
Oh, really?
So what the locals would tell me is like, oh yes, the howler monkeys in this area, oh sabroso. Like I would say, me gustan mucho los monos, and sabrosos, and I'm like, no,
No, por favor, no.
But of course, I mean, I eat cow, so what? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a different difference in culture, but
Different
so
grazer.
one of the things I was able to say with my master's thesis is, okay, this forest has been logged, but that does not mean that it's done forever or that it can't come back. If you allow it to regrow, first the capuchins will return, then the howler monkeys, will come back. And if it's left long enough, the spider monkeys could come back. So whereas, some of the attitude was, well, once it's cut, we might as well keep cutting it. We might as well, turn it into a farm, right? Well, not necessarily. We can still, there's still some hope for that area. So that was really it. And that was like my first experience of being able to really have a useful aspect to what I was studying, right? Some way I could say, okay, here's some information that I found myself and it could help. And that was just so exciting and so empowering that I could contribute.
For sure.
And maybe help make a difference. So then I was doing an internship, actually, trying to figure out, well, now what do I want to do next? And I always tell my students the trick is to take what you enjoy doing, what you're good at, and find a way to match.
Put it together.
The thing you want to do most, you might not be good at, but hopefully there's going to be some overlap there, right? Well, I was doing this internship and my boss turned to me one day and said, every time you talk about the tropics and tropical forests, your face lights up and you really want to be the boss.
Yeah, you want to go to the field.
So he said, go get a PhD. And I'm like, okay.
Challenge accepted.
Okay. And I never at that time did not think that I would be a teacher. I thought I wanted to do just the research side of it. But while I was in school for my PhD, I taught to help pay for it and discovered that I'm a pretty good teacher. And so that's kind of where what I like and what I was good at came together. Because by being a university teacher, that enabled me to do more research. And of course, it's always fun to do things you're good at and not fun to do things you're bad at.
Of course.
So I found that I really enjoy teaching because it's like this. It's talking about what I love. It's sharing, what I love to do. And so I've been really, really lucky. I now am at a small university in Daytona Beach, Florida, that is an HBCU, a historically Black college. And being from Florida, some of your listeners may be familiar with Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. She is an African-American woman who started this university in 1904.
Oh, wow.
Very influential figure in the civil rights movement in the US and was just basically a force of nature unto herself. And so she now is represented by a statue in Washington, D.C. Every state has 2 statues in this hall of statues in D.C. And she's the first African-American woman in the hall of statues in D.C.
Wow. So
I work at her school.
Yeah, but that's I think like we have our own Marie Curie here because she was kind of the same years, 1900s.
She's awesome. So so I'm at Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach. I've been here for about 12 years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. When I went back to school to do my doctorate, I didn't know what exactly I wanted to study, but I knew that I wanted to go back to the tropics, that I wanted to do something with behavior that was connected to conservation. But I didn't want to study primates again because I didn't want to be an anthropologist.
Okay.
So anthropologists tend to study primates in order to understand just primates or to understand humans. I don't care about humans. It's not my thing. There are plenty of people out there who are
There's a
studying
lot,
bees. I leave it to them.
a billion of them, and a lot of them are, I cannot say the word.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I was looking for sort of what my next thing would be. I happened to meet and work with a professor from Venezuela, who then had a colleague who still taught in Venezuela at Universidad Simón Bolívar in Caracas, and he studied capybara, chigüires in
Capibara.
Venezuela. And at first, like, oh, rodents? Rodents and a giant rodent? But then his name is Emilio Herrera, and he was like the capybara guy at the time, and he was working in the field but wanted to shift more towards working in the lab. Well, I wanted to work in the field without having to work in the lab, so we were sort of this perfect match. See, aren't they adorable as babies? They're so cute.
They look so cute. For those of you who don't know what a capybara is, you probably have seen a lot of videos in the internet, and people now have like these pets that they look like a big guinea pig, like really big, like dog-sized guinea pig. They're pretty big, but we will talk about them a little bit more.
Yeah, and they're closely related to guinea pigs, but yeah, much bigger. And so this was like a perfect collaboration, right? This Emilio did the lab work for their genetics and looking at some of the diseases that impact them, and then I was in the field looking at behavior. And once I got to know them better and got to understand more about them, then I was hooked. They called me La Reina de los Chigüires.
La reina.
The queen. Yes, I was the queen of the capybaras. And it was in Venezuela specifically, they are harvested. They're part of a managed harvest. So each year around Lent, around Semana Santa, they are harvested. Ranches can get permission to take 20% of their total number of capybaras on their land. Wow. So, and because they are territorial, they don't really try to run away. So if you own a cattle ranch and you protect your land to protect your cows, then you are automatically protecting any capybara that are there, right? If you just don't kill them, they'll pretty much be there.
Oh, forever.
And they breed. They actually can have up to 8 or 9 babies with one litter.
Wow,
which
that's
is
a lot.
Which is a lot for an animal that size. Yeah, the average is about 4, but they can get up to 8 or 9. And the value per kilo, they are worth more than beef.
Oh, wow. So they're tasty too?
Yes. So they eat grass. So they taste like cow.
Oh,
basically.
wow.
But a very lean, like if you ever buy, expensive grass-fed meat at the grocery store, that's like capybara. I will confess, I did taste it once.
You have to do it.
I was in someone's home and it was offered to me. And again, I would say I like capybaras, and they're like, oh, sabroso.
The queen of capybaras is eating capybara.
Yeah, so and it was during the legal harvest and everything, and then once the local people got to know me, they would make me tuna fish whenever they were
okay.
They understood. But they're just, so back to the harvest in Venezuela, during Semana Santa, when the people are not eating meat, right? But Catholics can eat fish.
Fish, yeah.
Well, capybaras spend a lot of time in the water. And so in the year 1784, when an explorer from Spain was exploring Venezuela and described capybaras back to the Pope said, well, they spend a lot of time in water, so basically they're fish and you can eat them. Yes.
Los nombraron peces. They call these pescados peces. Oh,
yeah.
God.
Yeah. Yeah. So so they became a traditional meal during Semana Santa, during Lent in Venezuela.
Oh, what a trick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start calling cows fish. Like
No, now you can't cows don't like water that much. You got to get a capybara.
God, what if they get in the mud? Can I eat that on Semana Santa?
Yeah, it's craziness. It's craziness. But the good thing about it is that because they're managed, and so the people only take 20%, and it is regulated. The capybaras in Venezuela are still a healthy population.
Okay.
What's interesting, though, is they're a healthy population where they are managed. So within protected areas or within cattle ranches where the owners are protecting them from poachers. But if you go out, once you're outside the limits of those areas, you almost never see one. Because as the economy has struggled, people are hungry. So people will eat what they can find, right?
Of course.
And so then you look at other areas within Latin America where they're not managed. And in some areas, it is legal to kill them, and they are more threatened in that particular area. And then in Brazil, where it's illegal to kill them, they are protected. They're almost overpopulated. Like people actually complain sometimes about them getting into crops and eating crops or eating people's pretty flower bed or things like that. So it's a really interesting example and way to look at how hunting and harvesting can impact the population. That is what I would like to do if I could go back and continue studying them. That's one of the things I would like to look at is their behavior, how their behavior differs in places where they are hunted and places where they are not.
Yes, they probably could be like more aggressive or not that friendly. Because I was listening to the way I contact you was because I listened to you in another show, and I remember you said like they're not like super friendly, but they're not, at least where you in the area you were, they didn't feel threatened by you.
Exactly.
So they were kind of chill, and if you see the pictures, they're chill with like gators next to them, birds on top of them, like they don't really care too much. So maybe it could be like a difference in that.
Exactly. Well, and yeah, so I laugh because the movie Encanto, the cartoon, Encanto has a capybara in it. And he's totally capybara. He like doesn't care about anything. He just sits there. Things are going on around him. It's they got it right. They got it right.
Yes, like they don't care. They're like stoners. They're just going around.
Whatever. So yes, that would be really interesting. What I actually studied for my doctorate was natal dispersal. So what that means is when young ones grow up, if they stay with their parental group, stay in the social group where they were born, or if they leave. And what I found is that the males will leave, but the females will stay. So when you look at a social group, the females tend to be all related to one another. They're moms and sisters and aunts, but the males are not. because the males are moving from group to group. And this way they avoid inbreeding.
Oh, so is it something like the species kind of thought about, like, like kind of human way, or it's just...
Basically what happens over evolutionary time, the capybaras that did not leave and they stayed and mated with their close relative, they had unhealthy babies, and those babies did not survive. So the only capybaras that survived were the ones that left to find mates that were not closely related. So now, thousands of years later, what we see are the ones that survived, the ones that did it by moving out. And you can imagine, right? If the males are leaving, but the females are staying home, then the risk of mating accidentally with your sister is low because you left.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that's putting a lot of human qualities to make it easier to explain, but that's the idea.
But that's pretty impressive, because I'm thinking, like, what about, like, maybe this male that, that's with this other capybara, they have babies, those males stay, the father with that new, or he also just, I got you pregnant, I'm leaving too again?
No, so once an adult is in a group, they tend to stay there.
Okay.
Once an adult male is in a group, they tend to stay there, but the young ones
are the ones leaving.
Now, what's interesting, again, like my next study, right? I have all these dreams of what I would study.
You will do it. I know you will do it. We'll be talking about this in 2 years.
Is how a young male capybara introduces himself to a new group. Right?
Interesting, too.
How does a young
Usually males are like, I'm literally reading one book right now. It's called Alpha God. So if you read it, you know what my question was gonna be, like
well, exactly. And capybaras are like that. Male capybaras have a dominance hierarchy. So they have an alpha male and the alpha male gets most of the opportunities to mate in that social group. Although the subordinate males, they sneak around and they get opportunities too, but they have to sneak around. And they do defend a territory. So my collaborator, Emilio Herrera, he actually saw two groups of capybaras kind of have almost like a gang war when they got too close and they were fighting, right? So they can be very aggressive.
Oh, wow.
So again, how does a young male get into this new group? And I mean, I think of it like, how do capybaras date?
They don't have Tinder?
And I mean, it's all grass. It's everywhere. It's not like taking a capybara out to dinner isn't a big deal. It's grass. You can't just bring her, some dead animal. But what I think is that it has to do with the young animal sort of stays at the outside of the social group and kind of gets them used to his smell. Right? So capybaras, they have a scent gland on their nose called the morillo, little hill, morillo. And they use that to scent mark. They have this like white, milky secretion that, I know, it's kind of gross. I know. But it's not gross if you're a capybara. And,
of course.
And so my hypothesis is that by scent marking around this new group, they get the new group used to their smell. And because they are young, they're not seen as a threat as much as another adult would be seen as a threat. So I think part of the process is that they have to move when they're young enough to not be a high threat to the alpha male of the group.
it will be a big difference between like the time that a young capybara gets to the actual normal size, or it will be a big difference maybe in the shape of the nose or something for like the older ones to the younger ones.
So they take about 2 to 2.5 years to get to full size. And they tend to, the average age when they will leave home is about 18 months.
Oh,
so they
that's why
leave home when they're big enough that they can survive on their own and not be food for every snake and bird of prey that's out there. But when they're still a little bit smaller than an adult male.
Yeah.
And we've also seen that, like, they may try to follow a female, but the females won't let them mate with them yet. The females will brush them off.
Even the younger females, they all know?
Even the younger females, they don't like the little males. They don't like the little guys. They're like, no, you gotta go up all the way. Exactly. Exactly. Because, in biology, size always matters.
Oh, yeah. You hopefully have some dance moves.
Yeah, exactly. You got to know how to scent mark just the right way.
Yeah. Even like we went to Portugal not long ago, and in this castle there was this pavo real, and I didn't know that. That was my wife who told me, I know that's the male, the one with the beautiful feathers and all that. That's the male. The ugly one, that's the female. So yeah, usually you need something. If you're a male, you need something to attract women.
Exactly. That's a whole other talk.
Exactly. But I love where we're going, but I don't want to lose a few points, because I love the story. I love the capybara, but I have so much more questions that I have at the beginning. Just starting with, just starting like you decide to study birds first. Like, what do you notice on those birds that it was like a click for you? Like, oh wow, they're not just like in one leg and being pink in a corner. They do something specifically that you say like, oh, this is kind of interesting. What was that first thing when you start observing, in this case, this bird, that you realize, okay, they're doing something that I wasn't expecting?
So because I was working at a zoo, what prompted the research was that the flamingos were not having babies.
Okay.
So, and the zoo wanted to know why, what was wrong that they weren't having babies. They would lay eggs, but the egg would get lost or broken and wouldn't hatch. So flamingos, they build a mound of mud to nest. So they build like little hills to put their nest on, and then the pair will defend that nest and will, like, peck at other birds that get too close. So our first question was whether or not we had them in too small of an area, and so that they were nesting too close and there was so much fighting that maybe the eggs were getting broken. And we noticed, that there was a lot of fighting and over the nests, and that was causing some of the eggs to get lost. And so then we asked, well, are the males or the females being more aggressive? But it's hard to tell a male from a female flamingo just by looking at them.
Yeah.
So we pulled feathers that would have a little blood at the tip of the feather, and we could look at their do the blood work. Well, we had 36 flamingos, 15 nesting pairs. So 6 of the flamingos were either too young or whatever makes a flamingo ugly. I have no idea. They weren't paired up. And so we had 15 nests with 30 birds. But when we looked at the analysis, we only had 12 females. So of these 15 nests, 9 of them had a male and a female. 6 of them, 1/3, 6 of them, sorry, 1/3, Yeah, 6 of them had a male and a male, 2 males.
Uh-huh.
Now, and in the second year of the study, the only couple that hatched an egg and raised a young bird was 2 dads.
Oh, wow. You see, in nature.
Right? Now, so what we discovered now, 2 males were never seen attempting to copulate. They never attempted to have sex. And of course, biologically, you have to have a female in there
Yeah,
to
you
lay
have
the
to
egg.
have a female.
But what they did is they stole a nest and an egg from another couple and then raised the chick. So it would appear, more work is done to figure all this out, but it would appear that the drive to have a nest and to have an egg was like disconnected from the drive to have sex.
Oh, wow.
Having sex is one thing, but regardless of whether or not there's a sexual partner, the male had the motivation to have a nest with an egg. And because males are naturally a little bit more aggressive than
Aggressive, yeah.
females, right? If you have 2 males defending a nest, they are likely to be better at defending that nest than a male and a female.
And probably me thinking in here, probably that was one of the main points why it was so hard to hatch an egg, because probably more than one couple of males or even a single male was trying to get one nest, and they just get into arguments, doing quotes in the air, arguments, and we're breaking the egg until a couple of them just realize, okay, you and me can collaborate in this one. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then what the zoo did, once we figured all this out, the zoo then traded 6 males for 6 females with another zoo to balance out the sex ratio in their group.
Okay.
Because ultimately the goal for zoos is to have the animals breed in the zoo so that no more, and not take any animals from the wild. And so figuring out this, but so that for me, that was my first introduction to behavior research. It was very cool.
That's pretty impressive, because you see this beautiful pink bird and you don't know that they can just kick ass.
Yeah, exactly. They're very,
wow.
They're serious dads.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty awesome. And then forwarding a little bit, not too much, I love the conservation part, especially when you were talking about the monkeys in general. You said that the area in that forest in Venezuela, it was pretty damaged, or still you could have been able to fix it if you wanted. Like, we all know we can probably fix our planet, but those areas were already, like the monkeys just move away from that area already.
So no, this was a forestry reserve.
Oh,
so
okay.
It was being studied and preserved for studying the trees and the plants. And then because it was the forestry department of the university that was running it. And then they were actually, and this is where I say I have been so lucky, because when I was there the first time as part of a course, they were looking for someone to come in and study the monkeys so that they could develop their next draft of their conservation plan with more knowledge of the primates in the area. And so it was just the right timing. But the surrounding area had all been logged. And of course, there was always trouble with illegal encroachment and those outside areas kind of getting closer. But the advantage that I had is that the area had been so well studied in terms of the forest that I knew which parts of the forest. I had a map of where it was dense, tall, primary, regrowth, whether it was bajío or bajo, whether it was a little higher or lower, so that was wetter soil.
Alto, bajo.
And so I was able to kind of put all those things together with what the primates preferred.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And let me ask you this: what would happen, like, where, because South America, right? Venezuela is in South America. Do you think they will move like more to the south, to the colder weather, or more to the north, maybe Panama or something? I don't know.
Well, that's the problem, is that whenever we're talking about species having to move, they are then going to be coming in contact with other
New species.
species that they're going to compete with. And that's where it becomes dangerous, is that we say, yeah, okay, if the species can just move to avoid, but what happens more likely is no, they actually die out.
Yeah.
So the spider monkeys in that area are a critically endangered species, and the howler monkeys, I believe, are listed as threatened. Right now, I haven't checked in a while what their current status is, but that's the sad thing, because in Panama, there already are a different species of spider monkey and capuchin and
Oh.
howlers in Panama. And so there's really not room for more.
Oh yeah.
Hold on for just 1 second.
Yeah. Okay, nice. Then yeah, because I was thinking about that, because there is a huge problem. Maybe you can tell me, because you work in this. Because sometimes when people talk about hunters or things like that, and I have read a lot of information that it is not always bad. Like if somebody goes and hunts certain species, because there is a lot of invasive species. So even maybe the primates that move from Venezuela will die with the primates in Colombia. But there is a lot of invasive animals, like let's say like pigs and hogs. They don't really have some other animal that can kill them, or maybe some bears that are in certain areas that will kill the deer. And
and so there's two sides. Well, so for instance, in Brazil, right, where the capybaras, in some areas, there's too many capybaras because they breed so well. And so there have been some discussion, well, maybe sometimes we should cull, is what we call it, culling some of the animals so that the population stays healthy. In the US, we do this with the deer population. Particularly, I'm from Ohio in the north, and there's if the deer are not hunted, because we have destroyed so much of their habitat, there's not enough room for all of them anymore. And their natural predators, the wolves and things, are pretty much gone. And so we have to kill some of them to keep the rest healthy, or they can get overpopulated and then disease spreads. The challenge is educating the public so that they know which animals can safely be taken and which not.
And the seasons.
Exactly. And in particular, if you have, people that are hungry, then that's a whole other, like, how do you, the first thing we have to do is make sure that the people have what they need to survive, or the animals are never going to.
Yeah, because that's one thing that you just mentioned, like in Brazil. Usually I have zero knowledge of Brazil, and I know most countries, they have a pretty rich money people and regular people side, but usually they have another side that is really poor. And my understanding, and I could be completely wrong in this, is like there are some areas in Brazil that are really poor. So if you think about an animal that you could like take care of 20-25% of them one time a year, that's a lot of taste of steaks for
exactly. Exactly. And that is, and some of that too is just the cultural aspect of people. So I think about it here in the United States, we sort of joke sometimes about eating roadkill, right? If you see someone hits a deer in the road, right? Well, you're going to pick that deer up and make it for dinner.
Yeah. Not a lot of people will do it. No.
We joke about that, but at the same time, if you're hungry enough, yeah, that deer is food.
Yeah.
Right. And so for here, it's deer. In other places, that the same would apply to capybara, or, what are and that's where we have to be really, I think, careful and really aware of cultural differences in terms of, I can't go into an area and say, oh, capybaras are awesome, you should not eat them. It's wrong to eat capybara. Who am I to,
Yeah.
other cultures would tell me that I'm very wrong for eating cow.
Yeah.
And so we have to be understanding of the cultural component and the economic, how hungry are you? How it gets very complicated very quickly.
Yes.
And requires a lot of communication and understanding among people. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it is good that we live in the States, but we have zero idea of other cultures. Like literally, I was watching the other day one documentary, and in this part in Africa, they literally just catch bugs in the air and they mix it with something and they do burgers out of bugs because they have a lot of protein. But you would never think in here that you just get that, like your net and catch flies and just create a burger with that. You will never think about that. But
Right.
there is nothing else to eat there. You cannot even grow stuff in some areas.
And who knows? Maybe it tastes good.
Probably. I'm Puerto Rican.
Actually,
I know if you put some adobo y some sofrito ahí, it's gonna be good.
Exactly. Yeah. It can all be fixed up.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. Yeah. Yeah. We're pretty. Lucky. I should say. I should say and that's something that we need to think more about. And probably will be a little bit more humble and try to understand even our neighbor.
And honestly, I would say that I think that I am one of my dreams is to create a course that would take undergraduate students from the US to Latin America, or to Africa, or other just places that are so culturally different that it's just really impossible to imagine it without living it for at least a couple weeks. And I think it would be such an incredible learning experience and opening of communication and cultural acceptance and everything else. But unfortunately, so many of our students have so much trouble paying for school itself that they can't afford to take these, study abroad opportunities. So I'm looking for ways that I could finance something like that, and actually I'll do a shameless plug right now
Oh, you
for
have to. You have to.
I have a nonprofit that I created called BEC Research, BEC, that it stands for Behavioral Ecology and Conservation. And I can send you the link. And
Yes, I will put it in the show notes. Yeah.
I need to get the donate button working, but it should be functional within the next couple weeks. And that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to raise money so that students can have research opportunities and study abroad opportunities and things like that. So yeah, we only have a couple minutes left, so I'm going to do a quick note about my current research. So being at a small school, it's difficult to do international research. So I was looking for something local. So I work with what we call the bully breeds at the local animal shelter. So pit bulls, Staffordshire Terriers, boxers, things like that. The big dogs, right? The big, fun, sometimes scary
beautiful
dogs. Yes, they're gorgeous. And we do different training and enrichment with them to help them have a better quality of life in the shelter, which then helps them to remain calm and to have less anxiety, and then be easier to adopt.
Nice.
Because an anxious, nervous, scared dog in a shelter is not going to be a dog that someone wants to take home. but it's also not their normal, natural personality. They don't, if you imagine, you know, if you were in jail, you would not be behaving like your normal, loving self.
Yeah, you don't know where you are. You're just suddenly appearing. Oh, where am I?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's where I was in the lab today, is analyzing. We collect saliva from the dogs and analyze it for cortisol, which is the stress hormone, to see if what we're doing with them is helping them is lowering their stress by seeing if it lowers their hormones levels.
Nice.
And so far, we've been able to show that playing with dogs in a really interactive way, just 10 minutes a day, is enough to lower their stress, and they jump less and they bark less. And so I'm really hopeful that, and so everyone out there, I would encourage you to adopt a dog, do not buy a dog, and keep an open mind with shelter dogs, because they are not necessarily behaving like themselves when you see them in the shelter.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Elizabeth Congdon. Elizabeth, this has been an honor. Hopefully we can have you back here. Hopefully if those other programs that you're planning on doing, I can help a little bit more with that. I will put all the links for all the listeners to click and go there and help you. So you have the BEC research program, and then the organization, the dog organization name is?
It's, you can also donate through the same Beck Research.
Okay.
Or if you just donate to your local shelter.
Okay, that's great. This has been
always need
amazing.
help.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you. I hope
Thank you so
everybody listening can go where they can find you. Maybe they can go to your page or something.
If you go to the Beck Research page, I'm the founder of it, so there's information about me. And I'm working on making it better. If you Google my name, you'll find more stuff about capybaras.
Exactly. Or you can go to your whatever TikTok, Instagram, and put capybara. You will see a lot of them jumping in the bathtub. So
yes, exactly.
Thank you, everyone. Y como siempre, recuerden siempre buscar la manera de aprender que más le divierta. Chequeamos. Bye, bye.